Greetings ladies and gentlefish, and welcome to another pair of subscriber replays. Now if you can cast your minds back to before I moved, actually, I think it was one of the last videos I put up before I did move, you may remember a video in which Enmei drove the Object 430 Tier 6 Soviet medium tank, so Tier 10 Soviet medium tank, my apologies, drove that tank to devastating effect. And so I thought I'd take this opportunity to fill in some of the gaps in the tech tree. So we've seen Enmei in the Tier 10 on that particular tank line, the Object 430. I have videos showing the A43, the Tier 6, the T-34 I guess is the Tier 5, and the A44, the Tier 7. And so in this video I'm going to take advantage of some of the replays you guys sent in showcasing the Tiers 8 and 9. So here we have Ando Laxbro. Just going to call him Ando for short. He's driving the Object 416, the frying pan of doom. Now I do actually own this tank myself, but I haven't really played it very much. So I haven't had any videos to show you about it. Nothing really to say. As far as I can work out, it's a bit of a medium tank destroyer hybrid. It gets, for a Tier 8 medium tank, a very good gun. This is essentially the same 100mm gun you get on the T-54, the Object 430 version 2, you know, the Tier 9 Soviet medium tanks. Which means that it also suffers from Tier 9 Soviet medium tank syndrome, i.e. the shells are damned expensive. Now you can see here that Ando has actually got 20 armor piercing, 12 heat and 3 high explosive, and of course this also gets the ludicrous 330mm of penetration with its premium ammunition. Now you may have noticed that Ando did something kind of clever with one of his earlier shots. He waited for his camouflage net to come up before he fired, minimizing the chances that he would be spotted. Now he's playing this tank very much like a tank destroyer. As I said earlier on, it appears to be a bit of a medium tank TD hybrid, and Ando's gameplay would appear to reinforce that idea. The rate of fire and the DPM on this machine is terrifying. The trade-off, of course, is that it's a very awkward tank to use. It's really low, really flat, has awful gun depression, and doesn't have a fully rotating turret. You'll notice in the bottom left, where it shows the tank profile, if you will, the turret only covers the front. It's not even 180 degrees, it's probably about 160 degrees or something. So the tank can't shoot behind itself, basically. And this is a feature also shared with the Tier 9, although it's slightly less extreme in the case of the Tier 9. So what you have with the Object 416, as far as I can work out, is a very fragile machine with terrible gun depression, and without a fully rotating turret, but a very good gun. And, well, that sounds very much like a tank destroyer to me. So, thus I say it seems to be a bit of a hybrid between a medium tank and a tank destroyer. It's mobile, but not very flexible. Anyway, let's actually have a look at what Ando's doing. So he's basically, as I say, been playing this a bit like a tank destroyer so far. In fact, he even has binos and a camo net. I don't know if he's using those because it's the equipment he wants to use on this tank, or if he's just using it until he can buy more optimal equipment. I've no idea. It would be up to him, but either way, he's so far racked up, well, over 1500 damage, just playing this thing a bit like a TD. He is, of course, top tier in this match, which helps. You know, the only real downsides of this gun are that the penetration is okay, if not spectacular, and ditto for the accuracy. For Tier 8 medium tank, the alpha damage is very good, and the rate of fire is, well, the overall DPM, alpha damage, rate of fire combined, is absolutely obscene. So that's really where this tank shines, just opening up on targets. Now if you actually have a look at Ando's ammo count, you'll see that he's down to 5 rounds of armor piercing ammo. Not all of his shots have found their mark. He's taken 1 or 2 blind shots, but also, you know, the inaccuracy of this gun. And I mean, that shot, I don't think it's ever going to penetrate there, so I wouldn't even bother. When your ammunition is this expensive and in this much of short supply, you do need to be careful with where you place your shells. Anyway, Ando's going for shots. He doesn't really have a shot on this KV-4 or the OI. He did have shots on the IS, but not so much anymore. I think the map, this position, sorry, is kind of outstaying its usefulness. Oh, Object 416, never mind. And the enemy T-3485M is, I've no idea what he's whinging about. Apparently people are cheating, more likely he doesn't know what he's doing. And then Ando makes a bit of a mistake. KV-5 there, in an engagement with an enemy Object 416, and Ando isn't cautious enough, basically, and ends up accidentally putting a shell into the rear of his KV-5 ally. It's easily done if you're not super careful, and you really should be very careful in those situations, because obviously any damage you do to your ally, to your allies, hinders your chances of winning the game. I don't want to be too harsh on Ando there, we've all done it from time to time, but you do need to be careful. Manages to redeem himself though as he picks up a kill on the Object 416. Enemy KV-4 is a one-shot, as is the IS, so if the KV-4 is going to turn his turret to the side, Ando will take advantage of that. Now, it should point out, Ando is down to his heat ammo only. All of his armor-piercing ammo has been expended, but he's also racked up so far almost 3,200 damage. So he's not using heat against the T-3485M because he wants to, it's because it's all he's got left, apart from a few rounds of HE. Now, he actually gets very unlucky, and that shot plants itself straight in front of the T-3485, which is kind of irritating, but there we go, that's life. In a straight-up engagement between these two tanks, Ando should just completely wreck the Tier 6 without many problems, although the Tier 6 can hurt him. Lets the shot aim, and puts a shot into the rear of that whingy T-3485M, who is convinced that everybody else is cheating. More likely, he just doesn't know what he's doing. IS and an OI are over here, of course. Two tanks down. This is the friendly team. But if you look at these guys, the OI, the IS, now a Super Pershing, they're all one-shots for Ando here. And if these three guys die, then suddenly the friendly team only have, the enemy team only have a T-43 and an artillery piece left. Ando manages to put a shot into the Super Pershing to take him out, then wrecks the OI. Now the IS has kind of run out of friends, and of course it bounces. What are you gonna do? And apparently Ando is of course a gold moron because he's run out of ammo otherwise, yeah, wombat. Anyway, kills the IS to give him a top gun, but that of course means that Ando is alone now versus this T-43 and the artillery. Second shot goes into the T-43, T-43 damages Ando's gun, but Ando now is only down to his high explosive ammo, which leaves this chap on 59 health, manages to bounce the shot from the T-43 and finish him off. Now, dicey situation, Ando has one shell remaining and there's one artillery piece remaining on the enemy team. If Ando aims his shot carefully, he might be able to penetrate this Su-14-1 and still win the game with his last shell. If not, this will be interesting. Now the average damage on this shell is 420, assuming it penetrates. So in a way, this is actually better than having the AP shell, because the AP does 320, and that may not actually guarantee the kill. So yeah, it's a dicey situation. 350 health. If Ando can aim this shot and penetrate with his HE round, the game is done, but the round doesn't penetrate. So there's only really one thing Ando can do here now. Ram the guy and hope, I guess. Now it sounds like the Su-14-1 has actually fired, which is a bit of a mistake, because now Ando has no reason not to just go for this, and boosh, Ando takes a lot of damage in the process, but he manages to finish off the enemy artillery with the ram to get the win. So let's go and have a look at the results for this one. So there we go, that was Ace Tanker, Bruiser, Fighter, sorry, that's Duelist, my apologies. Shell Proof, which is not something you often see in the Object 416, Fire for Effect, Top Gun, and of course that Radley Walters medal. for those 8 kills. 5,579 damage done. My god. On a tier 8 medium tank, that would be a good amount of damage to get at tier 10, let alone tier 8. 1,418 base experience might seem a little low given his damage count, but bear in mind a fair amount of that damage was from relatively long range. Commiserations to the enemy Super Pershing, 4,500 damage, 4 kills, 1,422 XP for him, but not enough to carry his team over the line. In fact, if you look at the enemy team, 6 tanks on their team did 0 damage, including that T-34-85M who was perpetually moaning, complaining, and demonstrating to all and sundry that he doesn't really know what's going on. All 35 shots Ando had, he fired 25 hit, 22 pen, and 1 splash damage, of course, with that HE round for that 5,500 damage. 3.5 from a distance of more than 300 meters. Received 7 hits, of which, well, 6 actually didn't penetrate. Talk about getting a little bit jammy. For 1,300 damage blocked by his armor. 1 shot went into a friendly, unfortunately. These things occasionally happen. It wasn't the intention. 3 enemy tanks spotted, 11 damaged, 8 destroyed, and, well, like I said, Soviet tier 9 medium tank syndrome because you're using a Soviet tier 9 medium tank gun. Ando lost almost 60,000 credits. Yes, he fired 12 rounds of heat ammo, but that's because he'd already used up his armor piercing. Made a very nice amount of experience in the process, basically over 3,000 even with a standard account. So a very nice game there from Ando. If I were to critique anything, it would probably be take a little bit more care about your shots when you're shooting at people who are engaged with your allies. You know, obviously you don't want to shoot your friendly tanks in the backside, but not to take anything away, that was a very nice game indeed. So, let's move on to the next game, and I believe I promised you the tier 9 from this tank line. As promised then, here is a game in the tier 9, the Object 430 version 2. The Object 430 was one of those machines that had alternative configurations using a frontal or center mounted turret and then another configuration using a rear mounted turret. The 430 version 2 at tier 9 is the rear mounted turret tank. If you compare it to its tier 9 counterpart, the T-54, basically they're very similar. They have the same kind of gun selection, which again means this thing is very expensive to run. But the basically as far as I can see anyway, the version 2, the 430 version 2 here, gets slightly better armor, but it has that rear mounted turret, and of course, as I mentioned in the previous game, the turret cannot turn behind it. It is strictly 180 degrees in the frontal arc. So the T-54 gets slightly better flexibility, where the Object 432 has slightly better armor. So that's the difference as far as I can see it. Anyway, enough of that. We're here on the Overlord map, and yes, that was a bounce, and we're joining Polestar Blue in his 430 version 2. And just checking now, interestingly, the 430 version 2, and indeed the T-54, actually gets a choice of 2 guns to use. One gun has basically better penetration, and the other gun has better aiming stats, and I think it also has a better reload time. Interestingly, Polestar here is using the gun with the slightly better penetration. And I say interestingly because this is not usually the gun that is preferred. I can only speculate why he's using it. Occasionally people do actually prefer it. But most of the time they go for the other gun. It might have been that he was grinding to unlock the other gun or some such. I don't know exactly what the upgrade path is on the 432. But either way, the gun that Polestar is using gets 219 penetration, 320 alpha damage. Of course, you've still got those ridiculous 330 pen heat rounds. And it actually has very good DPM, I believe. Slightly better than the T-54, I think, although I could be slightly mistaken there. Now, Overlord, of course, is one of these maps with a lot of ridges and whatnot to try and poke your gun over, and this is where one of the big limitations of a lot of Soviet machines, whoo-hoo, sweet Jesus, sorry, just as that Lorraine 40-ton gets obliterated by a light tank, this is where you're seeing one of the big limitations of a number of Soviet and indeed Chinese machines, and the 430 version 2 in particular. It has very little in the way of gun depression, and so it's very awkward to try and fight on ridgelines with it. You know, I mean, that's a common problem with many many tanks with a turret mounted on the rear. They just simply struggle to physically point the gun at someone. And you can see Polestar here is taking a ferocious beating. In fact, I was slightly surprised the AMX 1390 managed to put a shot into him, but I guess, yeah, it basically went through the unangled engine deck as Polestar was coming over the ridgeline. So that kind of makes sense. Remembering, of course, the engine deck will be at the front because you have this rear-mounted turret. Shot on the move failed there. I imagine if Polestar had been using the other gun, well, that would have had a better chance of hitting. I'm not saying it would have hit, but it would have had a better chance. Going for the Panther 2, but he gets tracked in the process, and the Panther manages to get away with his hide intact. AMX CDC appears to be going for this T-54. Polestar joins in. The AMX CDC is, of course, a one-shot, but so is the T-54, and there he goes. Scoreline is 8-9. Polestar has yet to pick up any kills, but he does have a shade over 2,100 damage, so he has been getting stuck in. Now, the way this game has gone, the friendly team have essentially taken the 7-0 lines, but the enemy team has the 1-4 lines fairly convincingly. Now, this kind of gives the advantage to the friendly team. The 1-4 lines is where you find the beach on this map, which is another one of those places on a map that is just so useless to go to. It's a bit like the valley on Lakeville. I've done a I don't want to call it a map tactics guide. It's more me driving around a map giving my thoughts on it, but I've done a video on Lakeville and expounded my opinions on the valley on that map at length. Now Polestar is going for this poor stock T29. It looks like that guy's using the 90mm gun, which without loading APCR has very, very little chance of penetrating Polestar's object here, and indeed Polestar is able to pick up kill number 1 by executing that poor fellow. That makes the damage count 3,300, and there's 4 enemy tanks remaining. Jagdtiger 88 over there, tier 8 German premium tank destroyer with a nice amount of health on him. There we go, he's now got a bit less. Now you can see there Polestar was coming up at a slightly awkward angle just to try and find the gun depression to shoot the fellow. Now of course the Jagdtiger only has about 200mm of penetration, the Jagdtiger 88 that is. So Polestar isn't in huge danger here of being penetrated by the guy, so he could kind of afford to not perfectly angle his armor, and he manages to pick up the kill, and now he's just got the big fat plump juicy bottom of the tier 9 Jagdtiger, which of course has received a HP buff, which is great. And what's especially great for Polestar here is that of course means that he can farm this guy for some more damage, which is always nice. So he hasn't actually managed to pick up the kill on that Jagdtiger, but he has reduced the guy to a 1 or 2 shot range. Can't quite remember how much health he was on. And then he spots this T-32, who is being engaged on from multiple directions, or will soon be engaged on from multiple directions, but the tanks about to engage him have been beaten up. So you've got the T-54E1, very dangerous machine, but not the best armoured, and only with 682 health remaining. And so in a one-on-one fight between the T-54 and the T-32, I wouldn't be surprised if the T-32 came out on top. It really does depend how each person plays. But with Polestar here as well, this T-32 should be pretty screwed. Now, the T-32 does actually manage to put a shot into Polestar, but then he turns around to engage the autoloader, which is entirely reasonable and sensible. And there we go, one more shot should finish this guy off. The T-54 will probably pick up the kill, although the T-32 manages yet another round into Polestar's object 430. But, you know, there's the kill anyway. It does actually make me wonder, with the reliability and regularity with which he was penetrating Polestar's tank, it does make me wonder if Polestar was packing, if the T-32 was just packing APCR ammo. Well, let's not worry about that now. Polestar loads a single heat round to try and deal with this Jagdtiger. This Jagdtiger, of course, does have a big enough gun to really hurt Polestar's tank, and actually the Jagdtiger bounces on Polestar, which is rather surprising with that 270mm of penetration, and Polestar manages to take the guy out from third person. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that, but as it was, it worked out in the end. He uses one heat round to try and make sure of the kill, otherwise, depending on the positioning, penetrating that guy could have been problematic, and Polestar is of course a one-shot here, so that could have gone very badly. And then switches his attention to the WZ-131, who does actually manage to kill him, which is, well, was quite surprising to me, let's put it that way. The WZ may well be firing APCR ammo or something, because otherwise with the, 100, depending on the gun, oh no, he was using the 100mm gun, so 180mm of penetration he gets with that gun. I'm even more surprised he penetrated Polestar's tank than the T-32. Not saying it was impossible to do without APCR, but just rather tricky. Just gonna speed this one along a little bit. SU-122-44 has found the light tank and executed the light tank. And there we go. That is the game. So let's go and have a look at those results. So perhaps unsurprisingly, that was an ace tanker there for Polestar, as well as Spotter, Bruiser, Fighter, Fire for Effect, High Caliber, and a Tank Sniper medal. Not something you often see in these Soviet medium tanks. 6,510 damage done, 4 kills, 1,509 base experience. Very nice result indeed. And it really was a bit of a massive carry on his part. Looking at the enemy team, the only person who really came close damage-wise was the T-54E1 on the enemy team, who achieved just shy of 3k damage. The Jagdtiger did 2.5, but the real deciding factor in that game was the presence of Polestar. 27 shots fired, 25 hits, 22 pens for that damage count, most of which was from relatively close range. Blocked 2,500 damage with his armor, 1,300 assistance damage. Made a profit because he only fired one heat round. Most of the shots he fired penetrated the target. And he's running a premium account. Even with a standard account, that would have actually been a 7,000 credit loss. These tier 9 Soviet medium tank guns are, as I mentioned in the previous game, expensive to run. And a nice amount of experience into the bargain. All told, a very nice game. If I were to be picky and criticise anything, and I will, it was the third person shot on the Jagdtiger to kill him. Now, he got lucky and the shot worked and he managed to finish the guy off, but I would have aimed the shot just to make sure. Anyway, there we go. A couple of replays for you in Soviet medium tanks. The less seen branch, I think. Less seen medium line. But I hope you guys enjoyed that pair of games. If you did, by all means feel free to catch some of my other videos and or subscribe to my channel, and I wish you very happy hunting on that battlefield. Ciao, ciao.